The People's Capitalism is an exceptional audiobook that is truly South African. The researchers spent years within South African communities, townships, villages, towns, shacks, and delves into the most crucial core issues. This audiobook combines education and delight, making it a truly enjoyable experience.
The People's Prosperity Code, Rebuilding South Africa Through Ubuntu Revival and the Rise of People's Capitalism, a new public philosophy of sovereign souls, self-reliance, and local wealth creation. Part 1. Ubuntu Revival. Introduction. Arduib. Too long. Black South Africans have been told to wait. Wait for housing. Wait for jobs. Wait for economic justice. Wait for a better life for all. But the waiting has only bred disillusionment, dependence, and decay. The People's Prosperity Code is the end of that waiting. It is a call to action, not through protest, but through creation, not through promises, but through personal innovation, not through political salvation, but through entrepreneurial resurrection. The ANC may have played a historic role in liberation, but its ideology is not African. Its roots are not drawn from indigenous values like Ubuntu or traditional economic systems rooted in family, land, and self-reliance. The Marxist-Leninist undertones of the ANC and its alliance with communist structures have, in many ways, undermined African principles of ownership, personal responsibility, and generational wealth building. We make it clear, South Africa must cut ties with the ANC, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. The ANC is not African heritage. It is not Ubuntu. Its roots are foreign, drawn from communist ideologies that have nothing to do with the wisdom, discipline, or economic principles of our ancestors. Communism is not care. It is control. It replaces the family with the state, enterprise with dependence, and spiritual dignity with political obedience. This work is a public education movement, not just a book or a campaign. Its purpose is to inspire a complete shift in mindset across South Africa, from passive dependency on the state and party politics to active, soul-driven, self-led transformation at every level of life. It aims to revive Ubuntu as a philosophy of personal mastery and leadership from within, rather than mere sentimentality and dependence. Ubuntu capitalism is a new economic philosophy rooted in ancient African wisdom and modern entrepreneurial spirit. It emerges from a world where ideologies have failed and where people are tired of being told what to wait for, instead of being shown what to build. Introduce People's Capitalism as an economic model where communities build wealth through grassroots entrepreneurship, mentorship, and ownership, not handouts or elite-driven policies. Not a desperate youth hustling for bread, but a logistics innovator who built a township delivery economy with zero resources and maximum trust. His model is replicable, scalable, and already making community life smoother. Sizwe didn't suffer. Sizwe solved. He's not a victim. He's a visionary. Tabo, the Tire King. Not a man stuck in a pothole economy, but a pioneer who turned South Africa's crumbling infrastructure into a goldmine of opportunity. The story proves that skills transfer across races creates wealth, not slogans. Tabo isn't proof that the poor are stuck. He's proof that a nation can rise on rubber, trust, and mentorship. Andrew, the tire furniture maker, not a recycler out of desperation, but an industrial designer without formal education. His yard is a manufacturing plant, not a dumping site. Andrew didn't inherit land. He inherited nothing, but built an economy with what others threw away. Unveil the People's Prosperity Code, a set of practical principles and values designed to help individuals reclaim their agency, build meaningful lives, and create generational impact. At its core, this initiative is about restoring dignity through truth, restoring power through discipline, and restoring hope through action that starts from the inside out. We must teach South Africans that loyalty to a party that has failed morally, economically, and spiritually is not patriotism. It is bondage. Liberation was a chapter, not a religion. The ANC's struggle credentials cannot be a license for perpetual misrule. We are not obligated to remain loyal to a legacy that no longer serves the living. Ubuntu calls for wisdom, not worship. This movement is not a soft reform. It is a spiritual break, a complete reorientation towards self-leadership, economic empowerment, and a rejection of any ideology, foreign or domestic, that keeps South Africans weak, waiting, or wedded to the past. Those who scream, "Take the land," never ask whose, already building without it. People's capitalism is not a cry for help. It's a declaration of independence. These are not the poor. These are the founders of a new economy. They don't need land expropriation. They need us to get out of their way. Chapter 1. The Devil in Ubuntu. How a powerful philosophy was hijacked to justify weakness. The word Ubuntu once meant something fierce, something forged in fire. It was the ancient code of self-mastery, where a human being became powerful by first becoming whole. But today, Ubuntu has been dittoed, looped into sentimentalism. It's no longer a path to personal greatness, but a performance of poverty. People have reduced it to smiles, submission, and struggle. They wear their lack like a badge of honor. But let's go back, not just to African wisdom, but to foundational philosophy. René Descartes, a French philosopher, stripped everything down to one simple certainty: cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. In a world full of illusions, he found one truth. He could not doubt his own thinking existence. Not, "I am because you are." No, "I am because I know I am." His power started from within, not from another person's presence. This is important. Cogito is not about arrogance. It is not anti-community. It is the starting point of consciousness. It says, you must first exist before you can offer anything to anyone. Descartes teaches us that your power, your being, your agency begins with the self. From there, you build a life, you build ideas, you build meaning. Now compare that to the modern slogan often used to describe Ubuntu. I am because you are. On the surface, it sounds noble. It sounds like community and care. But underneath, it is dangerous. It subtly trains people to erase themselves, to defer their identity, to derive their existence from others. That is not community. That is dependency. That is powerlessness disguised as philosophy. When you say, "I am because you are," you hand over your power. You surrender your agency. It means if the other disappears, you disappear too. That's not love. That's spiritual codependence. Ubuntu originally meant something very different. It meant master yourself, become someone of weight, build a life so rich in experience and wisdom that your presence uplifts others. That's true care, true contribution, not pity parading as love. Look at those who changed the world. Martin. Luther King Jr. found strength through his faith first, then inspired others. Gandhi found liberation within, through years of personal discipline before he freed a nation. Even Andrew Carnegie mastered the laws of success, then gave it away. What we call Ubuntu today is too often a sickness, a performance. People pretend to help while boiling with resentment, envy, or exhaustion because they were never whole to begin with. They were taught to serve before healing, to give before building, and it's breaking us. True Ubuntu is not "I am because you are." It is "I am, and because I am strong, I can help you become strong too." Africans today are taught to be humble before they are whole, to be sweet while starving, to smile through pain and call it grace. But humility without strength is a lie. Sweetness without peace is just performance. And peace comes from satisfaction, which only comes from success, of the soul, the body, the work, the life. Let's be brutally honest. Poverty is not humility. Lack is not love. And envy wrapped in smiles is not virtue. The slogan, "I am because you are," has kept Africa poor. It fuels victimhood. It gives people an excuse to avoid the real work, to look inside, build up, and rise. True. Ubuntu is not dependency, it's self-leadership. It is discipline, delayed gratification, solitude, inner clarity, gravitas. It's time for a philosophical reawakening. Descartes was right. I think, therefore I am. I know myself. I build myself. And because I have become, I can now extend that, becoming to the world. You must first do the inner work of personal development before you can go outside. The failure to do this inner work is the casu of all suffering, pain, and sorrow. Broken relationships because people are not authentic. You must be driven from within. You must be anchored with the power within. It is hard work that you must do. Understanding who you are, self-awareness, identifying what you want, goals, vision, purpose. Developing skills to get there. Communication, discipline, mindset. Overcoming what holds you back. Fear, limiting beliefs, bad habits. Becoming someone who adds value to your life and others. People who never pause to reflect don't know who they are, what they want, or what's holding them back. When people believe that everything wrong in their lives is someone else's fault, they hand over their personal power. Growth stops the moment blame begins. Let's strip away the false teachings. Let's return to the truth. Let Africa rise not on pity or borrowed slogans, but on power that begins inside and radiates outward. Chapter 2. Path Forward. Build yourself up. The only way forward is inward. You cannot define your existence by another. The popular Ubuntu phrase, "I am because you are," is not only philosophically flawed, it is existentially dangerous. It tells people to look outward for their being, to anchor their worth, purpose, and identity in others. That is not Ubuntu. That is escapism. That is slavery of the self. The original Ubuntu aligns far more with existentialism than it does with the current mushy interpretations. Ubuntu was not about dependency, it was about weaving meaning from your own fabric of life, your own decisions, your own strength. You are not born complete. You become, through trials, through will, through responsibility. That's Ubuntu. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, said it clearly. To live by the expectations or existence of others is to live in bad faith, mauvaise foi. It is to lie to yourself, to deny your own freedom, to pretend that you are not responsible for your life. When people say, "I am because you are," they dodge accountability. They hand over authorship of their life story to someone else. And in doing so, they betray their own potential. Bad faith is when you hide behind your job title, your culture, your victimhood, or your relationships, and pretend those things define you. It's when a poor man says, "I am good because I am humble," even though deep inside, he is angry, jealous, and defeated. It's when a nation blames its past instead of claiming its future. To live in good faith is to take radical responsibility, to stand naked before the truth and say, "I am not because of you. I am because I choose to be. I think. I decide. I create." That is the foundation of power. That is the beginning of real Ubuntu. The path forward is to build yourself up, to stop outsourcing your essence. Stop waiting for someone to validate your humanity. Stop using others as mirrors to reflect who you are. Ubuntu must start from the self, not from others. Ask, who am I when no one is watching? What do I stand for? What am I building? Build that. Then, and only then, do you become a pillar others can lean on, not a parasite disguised as a helper. Let the new Ubuntu be this: I am, fully, and because I am, I can love you without needing you to define me. That is power. Chapter 3. The Cancer of Community. The myth of the village to reclaim the true spirit of Ubuntu, rooted in self-leadership, not dependency. We must confront one of the most sacred cows in African rhetoric. It takes a village to raise a child. Let me be blunt. That idea is not just outdated, it's dangerous. A child raised by a village becomes shallow. Why? Because a village has no face, no singular voice, no unbroken standard of character. A village gives fragmented inputs, mixed messages, and diluted responsibility. When everyone raises the child, no one takes full accountability. What we see in practice is not a nurturing village. It's a chaotic crowd. A child is passed around from one broken person to the next, each one adding confusion, trauma, and inconsistent discipline. What do you get at the end? A person with no core, no rooted identity, no real values. Only public behavior shaped by fear of judgment and desire for acceptance. Worse, the myth of the village has become a mask for male recklessness. Men father children and then vanish, leaving behind a mess, saying, "The community will raise the child." No, sir, that's not Ubuntu. That's cowardice. That's spiritual absenteeism. You abandoned your post, and now you want applause. For cultural delegation, this is why we have generations raised without structure, without clarity, without depth, and we romanticize it, call it Ubuntu. No, let's call it what it is: abdication of duty. The truth is, a child needs one or two deeply formed, fully responsible, self-led human beings to raise them. Not a village of broken, directionless people. A father who has conquered himself. A mother who has disciplined herself. That's who should raise children. Anything else is outsourcing your sacred duty. This village mindset has infected our politics, our economics, and our sense of personal responsibility. It breeds mediocrity, because when the group is always expected to carry the load, no one gets strong. Everyone waits. Everyone expects. No one builds. We must destroy this. Cancer. Not community, but this myth of communal substitution for parental and personal responsibility. Ubuntu, rightly understood, is not about everyone doing everything for everyone. It is about becoming so whole that your very presence uplifts others. That's the natural village, the community that forms after individual self-mastery, not before. So let us say it with clear eyes. No, it does not take a village to raise a child. It takes a parent with backbone, a home with discipline, a soul that has been refined through fire. Only then can a village be a bonus, not a crutch. Let's slow down and talk about a word that quietly destroys lives: dependency. It sounds harmless. It sounds soft. But it is an invisible chain. Dependency is not just needing help. It is needing help as a way of life. It is when your very being, your decisions, emotions, and future rely on someone else showing up for you. Let me break it down. Dependency is when you can't think for yourself until someone else approves. You delay your plans waiting for support. You feel stuck, not because there are no options, but because you've trained yourself to wait. You blame your stagnation on others, your parents, the government, the past, your ex, colonialism. Dependency is when your power is outsourced. CEC is the belief, conscious or unconscious, that I cannot rise unless someone lifts me. That is not Ubuntu. That is bondage. And the scariest part, most people who live in dependency don't even know it, because it's not always about begging. It's more subtle than that. It's when you constantly think, someone owes me. I'm nothing unless others see me. They should have helped me. I would be further if life was fair. That's dependency talking. It has many faces. Emotional dependency, financial dependency, identity dependency, even spiritual dependency, where you believe only a priest, pastor, or prophet has the answers. But here's the truth. Anything you depend on for your sense of worth or direction controls you. And whatever controls you owns you. That's why we're stuck. That's why Ubuntu got corrupted. Because we celebrated dependency. We called it community. We called it humility. We called it culture. But dependency kills initiative. It strangles personal responsibility. It makes strong people wait for permission. It tells the mother not to start the business because the grant hasn't arrived. It tells the young man not to lead because the elders haven't seen him yet. It tells the thinker to stay silent until the room agrees. It tells the poor person to remain in lack because humble beginnings are noble. Nonsense. And here's the brutal twist. The longer you live in dependency, the more you begin to hate the people you depend on. Dependency turns people into victims and victims into blamers. Ubuntu, in its true form, is the opposite of this. It is radical self-reliance. It is saying, even if no one comes, I will build. Even if no one helps, I will find a way. Even if I start alone, I will still start. The future belongs to builders, not beggars. To leaders, not leaners. So today, cut the invisible chain. Look at your life and ask, where have I outsourced my power? Where have I waited instead of worked? Take it back. That's how healing begins. Chapter 10. 4. The other extreme. The inflated self and the lie of flash now. Let's swing the spotlight to the other extreme, the pumped up self. If dependency is the silent killer, this is the noisy imposter. You've seen it. The flashy cars, the curated hub, Instagram lives, the branded clothes, the loud declarations of success. On the surface, it looks like self-reliance, but look deeper. It's just another mask. This version of the self is not grounded in peace. It is not centered. It is not fulfilled. It is puffed up, inflated by noise, peer pressure, and insecurity. Dressed in confidence. These are people who look like they've made it. They even feel like they've made it for a moment. But inside, there's disconnection. Why? Because they skipped the part where you face yourself, where you build depth, where you wrestle with truth and values. Instead, they built a house of mirrors to reflect what society calls success, and when the applause fades, they're left with anxiety, loneliness, and shame. Because the self they show the world isn't the self they sit with in silence. This isn't Ubuntu either. This is ego dressed in Gucci, afraid of solitude. It's not real power. It's just protection. From judgment, from comparison, from feeling like you're behind. And it leads to a different kind of dependency on validation, on competition, on outshining others to feel worthy. You know what's ironic? Both the needy, dependent self and the inflated, performative self are disconnected from the real self. One hides in excuses, the other hides in excess. But both are running. From truth, from discipline, from soul. And that's what peer pressure exploits. You were satisfied. You were at peace. You didn't need much. But then someone pulls up next to you with a louder life. And suddenly you feel poor again. Not because you are, but because you measured your worth using their tape. That's the trap. When you are truly self-led, you don't inflate to impress. You center to serve. You simplify to see clearly. You own what you have and who you are. The car, the suit, the watch, none of those define you. You define you. Ubuntu at its highest form is neither weakness nor performance. It's wholeness. It's waking up and knowing, I don't owe anyone a show. I owe myself a life of meaning. Chapter 5 Real Wholeness. The Return to Inner Authority. So what does real wholeness look like? It's not flashy. It's not weak. It doesn't need a spotlight, and it doesn't need a savior. Real wholeness is quiet strength. It is inner authority. The sense that you belong to yourself. You don't check with society before you feel proud. You don't wait for applause before you move. You don't shrink when others succeed, and you don't swell up when others fail. You are steady, rooted, deep like an ancient tree. Real wholeness begins with honesty, not with others, with yourself. You admit what you fear. You confront what you avoid. You take stock of where you are without sugarcoating it, without exaggerating it. That's the foundation. Then comes alignment. Your thoughts, your words, and your actions begin to walk in the same direction. You stop living in fragments. You become one person, not a collage of roles. Not this person at church, that person at work, another one on social media. No, just you, consistent, whether you're alone or in a crowd, and from there comes peace. Not the kind that avoids problems, but the kind that says, I can face anything because I'm not lying to myself. That's wholeness. It's waking up in a small apartment and not envying the man in a mansion because you know your soul is rich. It's looking at your past without shame because you've made peace with the story and taken back the pen. Wholeness is when you no longer use people as mirrors or masks. You see them, you love them, but you don't need them to feel real. This is the highest form of Ubuntu. You have built yourself up so completely that your mere presence makes others feel safe, inspired, and honest. Not because you perform, but because you're whole. You radiate integrity, and that pulls people back to themselves. So forget loud power. Forget needy humility. Real Ubuntu is quiet clarity. It is the echo in your bones that says, I know who I am, and I have built this life from the ground up. No slogans, no flash. Just deep roots and clean air inside your chest. This is where healing becomes contagious. If you truly want to be whole, if you want real Ubuntu, not the performance, not the dependency, not the ego, but the real grounded power that transforms lives quietly and forever, then understand this. The path is solitude, not loneliness, not isolation. Solitude, the sacred space where you meet yourself without distraction, without noise, without applause. Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher, said it centuries ago. All of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He was right then. He's still right now. Most people cannot bear their own silence. That's why they need noise, music, social media, TV, parties, gossip. Not because they love these things, but because silence forces them to confront themselves. And the truth scares them. The Buddha did not become the Buddha in a group. He became the Buddha under a tree, in silence, wrestling with his own suffering. That is how wisdom is born. Not in crowds, but in stillness. Jesus went into the wilderness. Muhammad meditated in a cave. Nelson Mandela came out of prison, not broken, but with clarity, because the cell gave him solitude. But today, people avoid solitude like a disease. They say they're bored, they say they're depressed, they say they need stimulation. What they really mean is, I can't face myself. But if you never sit with yourself, you'll never know who you really are. You'll only be a reflection of others, a puppet of culture, a shadow of approval. Solitude is the forge of selfhood. It is the only place where the real you can rise, unshaped by fashion, uncorrupted by trends, untouched by fear of being misunderstood. It is in solitude where the fire burns off dependency, where ego is humbled, where meaning begins to form, not from outside definitions, but from your own bones. That's where Ubuntu begins. Not in the crowd, not in slogans, but in a quiet room where you sit and you ask yourself, what am I really made of? Until you can do that, you'll always be chasing something. Chasing validation, chasing escape, chasing identity. But once you find peace in your own silence, no one can own you. You are free. You have become, Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician and philosopher, said it with piercing clarity. All of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. That one line is a mirror held up to humanity. And Africa must look directly into it. Let's not romanticize it. Many Africans today fear silence. They fear solitude. They drown it out with loud music, nonstop socializing, parties, chit-chat, noise, and ritual greetings that last longer than the meaning behind them. It's not always about warmth. It's often about distraction. What are we running from? Because behind the laughter, behind the clinking glasses, behind the jokes and rhythms and gossip, is a soul that's never had a conversation with itself. We have confused togetherness with depth and busyness with meaning. This herd mentality, this addiction to the crowd, is why so many are spiritually malnourished. They are constantly surrounded, but deeply alone. They are always talking, but never saying anything real. Always greeting, but never truly connecting. And here's the harsh truth. Shallow community is not Ubuntu. It's anesthesia. It numbs the pain of facing yourself. It numbs the truth of your brokenness. It gives you something to do, so you don't have to feel. So you don't have to think. So you don't have to confront that lingering question. Who am I, really? In many African towns and cities, this addiction to groupthink and group feel has become cultural. And the worst part is, we have elevated distraction into tradition. People mock those who seek solitude, call them too quiet, antisocial, arrogant, or proud. But the truth is, they are simply walking a different path. The path of clarity, the path of self-mastery, the path of wholeness. No great leader, thinker, or soul ever emerged from endless noise. Stillness is not a threat. It is the beginning of vision. When you sit quietly in a room alone, you begin to hear your own voice, not the voice of your uncle, or the church, or social media, or your political party. Yours. That's terrifying for those who have built their entire identity on being liked, seen, and affirmed by others. But it is liberating for those who want to live with depth. So yes, Pascal was right. And unless we as Africans reclaim stillness, we will continue to confuse celebration for progress. We will keep dancing while our homes burn. We will keep greeting while our souls go untouched. We will keep gathering without ever growing. It's time to build a culture where silence is sacred, solitude is respected, and depth is desirable. Because, in the end, if you can't sit in a room with yourself, how can you expect to build anything true with others? Chapter 6. When Politics Replaces the Self. The hijacking of personal life. And that's precisely why political parties so easily take over people's personal lives. In a culture that avoids stillness, where people fear their own thoughts, political parties offer ready-made identities. They give you a flag, a chant, an enemy, and a hero. They do your thinking for you. You no longer need to sit alone in a room and ask, who am I? What do I believe? What do I value? Because the party will tell. You, they say, this is who you are. This is who to blame. This is who to worship. Now go shout it in the streets. And we do. With no resistance. With no interrogation. Because it's easier to adopt an identity than to build one. It's easier to be part of a political tribe than to become a self-led human being. This is the perfect soil for manipulation. People who are disconnected from self, trained to avoid solitude, allergic to silence, and desperate for belonging. That's why political parties in Africa are not just political, they're spiritual. They fill the void where personal philosophy, values, and internal power should be. They replace God, vision, family, dignity, and wisdom with a manifesto. In villages and townships, your entire sense of self can be reduced to a color on a t-shirt, a struggle song, or a name on a ballot. You vote not because you've reflected, you vote because your father did, your friends do, your neighborhood expects it. That is not politics. That is possession. This is the cost of a culture that fears solitude. It becomes a culture that cannot say no to noise, to crowds, to ideology, to empty rituals. It becomes a culture of parrots, not thinkers, a culture of slogans, not vision. And let's be even more honest. Political parties depend on your lack of selfhood. The less you know who you are, the more you need them. The more disconnected you are from purpose, the easier it is to chant about someone else's. Silence is a threat to corrupt systems. Stillness is where personal revolution begins. If everyone in Africa spent just 1 hour a day in solitude, reflecting, journaling, listening, asking real questions, we would not need most of these parties. We'd govern ourselves. We'd build from within. So yes, the absence of stillness is not just a personal issue, it's a political one. The liberation of Africa will not begin in Parliament. It will begin in rooms where people finally sit alone and remember who they are. There is another cancer in our cultural bloodstream. It's not loud. It doesn't shout like political chants. It doesn't dance like celebrations. It sits quietly. But it's just as deadly. It's the cancer of cleverness. It's the habit of explaining everything away, especially when you offer constructive criticism, especially when you speak truth with love and clarity. You say, we need more personal discipline. They say, well, the system is rigged. You say, we can't raise children without structure. They say that's Western thinking. You say, silence is the birthplace of wisdom. They say, that's not our culture. We are a lively people. Everything becomes a debate, a dodge, a detour. Instead of transformation, they offer explanations. But no matter how elegant the excuse, it never builds anything. This is the tragedy. Cleverness without courage. Intelligence without responsibility. People who can recite theory, but not change behavior. Who can argue endlessly, but cannot sit still and ask, what must I change in myself? This kind of cleverness is not strength. It's cowardice in a suit. It looks intellectual, but it's emotional avoidance. It's self-sabotage disguised as sophistication, and it is deeply rooted in our trauma. Africans have suffered colonization, apartheid, slavery, exploitation. We carry scars. And so cleverness became a shield, a way to deflect pain without dealing with it. But over time, the shield became a prison. Now we're trapped in explanations, blaming history, politics, economics, anything to avoid looking in the mirror. But here is the hard truth. No nation heals by explaining itself out of pain. No person grows by defending their weakness. Healing begins when you stop performing cleverness and start practicing humility. Not fake humility, the kind that says, I'm just a servant, while quietly resenting the world. No, real humility. The The kind that says, I was wrong. I can do better. I don't know everything. I will listen. I will try. Cleverness is proud. Humility is teachable. If we want to revive Ubuntu, if we want to become whole, powerful people, we must kill this cleverness. At the root, we must say, yes, the past hurt us, but it will not excuse us. Yes, the system is flawed, but I will not wait for it to save me. Yes, others may fail, but I still have a choice. That is power. That is Ubuntu. So the next time truth comes to your door, don't explain it away. Sit with it. Let it cut. Let it clean. Let it remake you. You don't just see the cancer of cleverness in everyday life. You see it crystallized, perfected, and performed on national stages, in government. In a healthy nation, leadership is about service, about results, about courage. But in too many African countries, government has mutated into something else entirely. A full-time public relations machine for failure, endless press conferences, carefully worded statements, slick spokespersons with well-rehearsed lines. Whole departments exist just to explain away incompetence, corruption, looting, and collapse. Not to fix it, not to own it, just to spin it. You ask, where's the water? They say, we have a multi-stakeholder engagement plan in progress to address infrastructural constraints. You ask, why did the money disappear? They say, there were irregular expenditures subject to internal audit investigations currently being finalized. You ask, who is being held accountable? They say, we are committed to ensuring consequence management as per our institutional values. But nothing changes. This is not communication. This is evasion theater. It's a script, a ritual, a performance designed not to inform the public but to neutralize them, to exhaust them with jargon, to drown truth in protocol. And here's the worst part. They believe their own spin. They sit in their air-conditioned offices, patting themselves on the back for having managed the narrative, while the taps are dry, the schools are broken, the clinics are empty, and the people are losing hope. Language used not to illuminate, but to obscure. Words used not to lead, but to distract, delay, deny. This is not governance. It's gaslighting at scale, and the people suffer while the government hosts dialogues, commissions, symposiums, and technical task teams, none of which feed a child or clean a street, because no people can rise under leadership that thinks its job is to explain rot away. Let's speak plainly now. No more riddles. No more diplomatic language. When the people give their minds, their votes, their voices, their loyalty, and their lives to politicians without question, without conditions, without demand for results, they are not being raped by the system. They are volunteering for abuse. You cannot say the politicians are raping you when you spread your legs for them every 5 years with a smile, a t-shirt, and a plastic food parcel. You cannot say you are oppressed when you kissed the hand of your oppressor and danced for it. Chapter 7. The Ubuntu Revival Blueprint, a manifesto for personal and cultural rebirth. If Ubuntu is to rise again, not as nostalgia, but as power, we need more than motivation. We need a blueprint, a new script, a cultural manifesto for those who are done performing weakness and are ready to build inner authority. This is the Ubuntu Revival. Begin with the self. Solitude as sacred ritual. Every day must begin with silence. Not your phone, not the news, not your neighbor's gossip. Just you and your thoughts. You cannot build a powerful self if you never meet it. 10 minutes, then 20. Build up to an hour. Make solitude your church. Make your mind your country. Ubuntu begins when you become someone you can sit with for hours and respect. Replace sentiment with structure. No more slogans that sound good but say nothing. It takes a village to raise a child is no longer enough. Where is the structure? Where is the responsibility? Ubuntu must move from performance to practice. Discipline is Ubuntu. Standards are Ubuntu. Delayed gratification is Ubuntu. We don't need more warmth. We need more backbone. Personal responsibility. Over group identity, you are not your race, not your class, not your political party. You are a soul, a mind, a will. Ubuntu Revival means stepping out of the herd. It means saying, I choose to think, speak, and act, not because others do, but because I believe it is right. Liberation starts when you stop chanting and start choosing. Raise children in depth, not performance. Your child is not a community project. They are your legacy. Raise them with vision. Teach them to think. Let them ask questions, sit alone, struggle, reflect, and stand up strong. Remove the addiction to groupthink early. A child raised in wholeness becomes a citizen of power, not a dependent of pity. Practice silent strength in leadership. True leaders don't need noise. They don't seek applause. They are thermostats, not thermometers. They set the temperature by being. Ubuntu must form a new leadership class. Quiet. Builders, inner giants, rooted thinkers. When a whole person walks into a room, they don't need to dominate it. They elevate it. Build institutions on principles, not popularity. We must move from emotional governance to principle-driven structures, from entitlement to enterprise, from inheritance to innovation. Ubuntu must be baked into our education, health, security, and spiritual systems, not as branding, but as architecture. Ubuntu must not be felt. It must be designed. Tennis, make stillness a civic value. Stillness should be taught in schools, in homes, in prisons, in parliament, as meditation, as reflection, as silence. This is not luxury, it is survival. No country can become great if its people cannot sit still long enough to think. Stillness is not the absence of progress, it is the root of progress. Ubuntu Revival is not a campaign. It is a civilization project. It is time to rebuild Africa. Not as a village of dependency, but as a continent of sovereign souls, each one rooted in truth, governed from within, unshakable, unbought, unbroken. That is the future, and it begins, alone, in a quiet room, with a soul that dares to say, I am, not because you are, but because I have returned to myself. The new African philosophy. From herd to sovereign soul, Africa stands at a threshold. Not a political turning point, not an economic shift, but something deeper, a spiritual awakening, a philosophical revolution, a call to finally bury the chains we've worn as ornaments. It begins with one truth. We are not a herd. We are not eternal victims. We are not the echo of colonial trauma forever. We are not what politicians say we are. We are not what global media frames us to be. We are sovereign souls, each of us. The new African philosophy must destroy the old myths that suffering is virtue, that poverty is humility, that waiting is patience, that leaders are saviors, that loyalty without thought is culture. No more. We are birthing a new code, a new creed. It doesn't beg, it doesn't explain, it doesn't copy, it creates. The new African philosophy is this: I think, I lead, I build. I am accountable for my life. And in mastering myself, I become a light that ignites others. It is a shift from dependency to self-reliance, from noise to stillness, from collective blame to individual clarity, from romanticizing the past to designing the future. We reclaim Ubuntu, not as sentiment, but as sovereign inner power. We don't serve from lack. We serve from overflow. We don't lead with noise. We lead with presence. We don't wait for reform. We become the reform. This new philosophy isn't for the masses. It's for the builders, the quiet ones, the thinkers, the misfits, the people. Tired of explaining, tired of slogans, tired of licking the boots of power, hoping to be noticed. This is for the few who will become the foundation of the many. The new Africa will not rise through mass appeal. It will rise through individuals who refuse to be common. Let that be you. Part 2. People's Capitalism. Chapter 8. People's Capitalism is a grassroots movement reclaiming capitalism for the common citizen. It is not the capitalism of billionaires, banks, and boardrooms. It is capitalism from below, dignified hustle, entrepreneurial curiosity, micro-innovation, and community-driven progress. This is capitalism stripped of greed and returned to its origin. The individual's instinct to solve problems, serve others, and build. Philosophical foundations. Human dignity through creation, people's capitalism, holds that the highest dignity lies not in receiving handouts, but in creating services, products, systems, and values. Work becomes sacred, not because of wages, but because of what it allows you to express and contribute, the natural economy of the township. In every street vendor, hairdresser, backyard mechanic, and taxi operator is the seed of capitalism. They did not read Adam Smith, but they live his truths daily. This is a native capitalism, rooted in context, culture, and survival, not in theory. Spiritual capitalism. We believe wealth is more than money. It is resilience, networks, trust, creativity, and character. These inner resources are the first capital in people's capitalism, and they belong to everyone. Post-Marx. Clarity Marx got one thing right. Inequality is real. But his prescription to kill initiative through forced equality is wrong. People's capitalism does not aim to flatten humanity, but to raise all boats by opening opportunity, not stifling ambition. Core beliefs ownership over dependency risk, over entitlement imagination, over ideology tinkering, over theory community, over corporatism creativity, over conformity practical expression. Micro business as the engine every spaza. Car wash, online store, home baker, welder, and handyman is part of this movement. They are not small. They are the foundation. We champion micro-entrepreneurship, informal trading, and hustle as noble and transformative. Idea tweaking over innovation. Myths. You don't need a new idea, just a new way. Take what works, twist it slightly, localize it, and do it with style. Uber did not invent taxis. Airbnb did not invent beds. People's capitalism teaches young people, copy with flair, and serve with excellence. Access-based wealth, you don't have to own everything. Just control access. Rent, borrow, lease, share. This is the spirit of bootstrapping. High return, low capital. We teach young capitalists how to start with nothing and grow something. Storytelling as strategy. People's capitalism is driven by narrative. We document and celebrate stories of Black South Africans rising through sweat, creativity, and vision, not through politics. This becomes the new mythos, the new legend, the new gospel. Tech-enabled, human-centered. We teach youth to use AI, mobile apps, and social platforms as tools of trade, but always with the human soul at the center. Tech is the scalpel. People are the surgeons. Our icons are not billionaires. They are builders. We don't idolize Elon Musk. We respect the uncle who started a funeral business with a baccy and a tent. We don't need fancy degrees. We need hustle wisdom passed down, digitized, and scaled. Our motto. We rise by building, not by begging. Wealth is made, not inherited. We are the new capitalists, people's capitalists. Chapter 9. Observing and learning from Indians. Among Africans, there is a well-known saying, an Indian becomes wealthy with just one banana. At first glance, it may sound like a simple proverb, but it carries deep admiration for the Indian, community's entrepreneurial spirit, resilience, and long-term thinking. Across many African townships and inner cities, this saying is spoken with respect, not as sarcasm, but as a reflection of a cultural truth observed over generations. What this saying captures is the essence of starting small, thinking smart, and growing steadily. It tells the story of how a person can buy a few bananas, set up a small table on a street corner, and begin trading. From those modest beginnings, day after day, profit is reinvested. Relationships are built with suppliers and customers, and soon that one banana becomes a fruit stall, a grocery store, then a chain. It is not magic, it is mindset. The Indian community in South Africa and across the continent has shown that wealth does not begin with capital. It begins with attitude. This is a community that understands margins, hustle, and the power of consistency. They buy in bulk, reduce wastage, negotiate hard, and save more than they spend. They work long hours. They involve the whole family. They build brick by brick. There is no shame in starting small, only shame in staying small without effort. In township economies, Indian traders are often the backbone of local commerce. Whether it is a corner shop, a fabric store, a spice wholesaler, or a cell phone dealer, their presence is felt because of this principle. Start now. Start with what you have and grow smartly. The one banana is a metaphor for vision. the ability to see potential where others see limitation. It is also a testament to discipline, patience, and risk-taking in the face of hardship. For many African youth today, this proverb is more than cultural wisdom, it is a blueprint for economic freedom. As South Africa continues to seek economic transformation, there is much to be learned from this humble saying, not only about Indians, but about what it takes to build a legacy, from one banana to a business empire. One of the most remarkable qualities of the Indian community in South Africa is their deep understanding of local markets and their ability to tailor products and services to suit the needs of everyday people, especially the working class and the poor. This isn't accidental. It's the result of generations of observing, listening, and adapting. Studying the streets. Not just the stats, Indian traders don't rely on formal market research reports. They study human behavior at ground level. They watch what people buy, how much they spend, what time they shop, and what goods move fastest. They understand payday patterns, school terms, and even seasonal preferences. This gives them a streetwise intelligence that allows them to stay relevant and responsive. They are quick to stock affordable alternatives, break bulk into smaller units, and introduce new products that match the income patterns of the township. Economy. Whether it's selling R5 airtime vouchers, small sachets of washing powder, or lay-by plans for school uniforms, they move with the rhythm of the people. Service to the lower class. Without looking down far from being aloof, Indian-owned. Businesses are often the most accessible and service-oriented in lower-income areas. Whether in Marabastad and Pretoria, the CBDs of Durban and Johannesburg, or small towns across the country, their shops offer clean environments, longer trading hours, and friendly service, often at prices lower than large retail chains. They cater to migrant workers, pensioners, students, and street vendors, not with pity, but with respect. They offer credit, discounts, loyalty, and trust, built through relationships. This is why they are not just businesses, but pillars of local economies. Marabastad and inner-city economies. Take Marabastad, for example, a historic market district where Indian traders remain the mainstay. While many large retailers avoid inner-city spaces, Indian businesses thrive there. They offer quality textiles, electronics, fashion, furniture, and food at unbeatable prices. Their shops are often intergenerational, with sons and daughters learning from their parents, continuing the family trade with modern upgrades like online ordering and WhatsApp catalogs. In the chaos of the inner cities, where others see decline, Indian traders see opportunity. Their ability to maintain order, cleanliness, competitive pricing, and customer service sets them apart. Adapting to new demands. Even in the age of e-commerce and globalization, Indian businesses in South Africa are evolving. They now combine traditional retail with digital platforms, run delivery services, and partner with local influencers. Still, their core principle remains the same: serve the people with respect, affordability, and consistency. The Indian community in South Africa doesn't just do business, they study the soul of the market. They know that people want value, dignity, and reliability. And that is what they offer every day, from the inner-city alleys of Marabastad to the crowded avenues of Chatsworth and Laudium. They don't sell luxury, they sell what matters, and they do it better than most. That is why they are not just traders, but trusted community partners. Chapter 10. The Indian Community in South Africa, Living Proof of Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. When the late business thinker C.K. Prahalad introduced the world to the concept of the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, he challenged a long-held corporate assumption that profitability lies only in serving the wealthy. Prahalad argued that there is untapped economic power in the poor and working classes, and that companies who understand this could transform both their bottom line and society. Long before this concept became academic theory, the Indian community in South Africa had been living it, on the ground, in the streets, and in the markets. Enterprise at the base of society, Indian South Africans, many of whom descended from indentured laborers or modest merchants, were born into a system that excluded them. But with limited access to formal financing, they turned to the people around them, the working class, the pensioners, the informal traders, the domestic workers. They did not look up for profit. They looked around. Instead of waiting for government contracts or corporate jobs, they became traders, tailors, barbers, grocers, and pharmacists, serving township economies and rural populations that were often overlooked or considered unbankable. The Indian pricing strategy, a masterclass in street economics. Let's talk about one of the smartest and most underrated skills in township economics, pricing. And nobody does it better than the Indian trader. This is not guesswork. It's not random. It's not greed. It's strategy, refined, sharp, and tested over decades of face-to-face selling. Here's how it works. Step 1. Study the product before that product hits the shelf. The Indian trader has already broken it down in his mind. What's the cost? What's the demand in this area? How fast will it move? What is the reasonable profit I can make per unit? He doesn't just throw a price based on feelings. He sets a price based on logic, movement, and margin. Then comes the next layer. This is where most of us fail. Step 2. Prepare the lowest profit. Price. The Indian trader doesn't just stop at the ideal markup. He prepares 2 prices in his mind. The first price, good profit, clean margin. The second price, still profit, but lower, his "you're my friend" price. This second price is not random. It's calculated. It still keeps the wheels turning. It might be the "I move stock faster" price or the "I gain customer loyalty" price. And this is where the magic happens. Step 3. Read the customer. Like a book, you walk in. He greets you. "My friend, come in, come in. How can I help you today?" He introduces the product, the benefits, the features. You like it, but he can tell. You're hesitating. He reads your face. He reads your energy. He knows. You want it, but you can't quite afford it. Now this is where the amateur hustler loses the sale. But the Indian trader, he smiles and leans in. "You know what? For you, I can do it for this price." And boom, you buy. You walk out feeling seen, respected, and valued. You'll come back again. You'll send your cousin. You'll bring your mother next time. What just happened wasn't just a sale. It was relationship building through pricing. 2 prices, 1 hustle. That's the Indian genius. He doesn't fight you. He doesn't scold you for not having money. He doesn't chase you away like many black shopkeepers do when you negotiate. He simply operates on a flexible model. Profit or low profit, but never loss. Customer first, ego second. Keep the wheel turning. What can we learn? This isn't just about curry powder and cell phone chargers. It's about how we see our customers, pricing, and business relationships. If you're too stiff, too proud, too fixed, you'll lose people. But if you know your numbers, build in pricing flexibility, treat people with warmth and respect, you'll grow faster, stay longer, and build something worth inheriting. So salute the Indian trader, not just for his products, but for his pricing psychology. Because while you're still shouting, "Take it or leave it," he's smiling, making profit either way. How to use the Indian dual pricing model in your own hustle. You don't need a shop in Marabastad or a family from Gujarat to master this model. All you need is strategy, humility, and clarity. Let's break it down so you can use it today, whether you're selling from your boot, a WhatsApp group, or a street corner. Step 1, know your numbers. Cold before you sell anything, sit down and do the math. How much did it cost you to get this product or service ready? What's your target profit per unit, realistically? How many do you need to sell in a week, month to reach your survival goal? Once you have that, create 2 prices. Primary price, your standard retail price with your ideal profit. Floor price, your lowest acceptable price that still gives you profit, even if it's small. Note, your floor price is not a loss. You never go below cost. Ever. Step 2, build the script. Don't stumble through your pitch like it's your first time. You need 2 layers of delivery. First pitch, confident, friendly, full value. Sell the benefits. Second pitch, the "for you, my friend" offer. Drop the price a little, show care, make the person feel seen. Example, this one goes for 120 Rand, top quality, I promise. But you know what? For you, I'll let it go for 100 Rand. I want you to come back, so I'll take care of you. That simple shift builds trust and human connection. Step 3, read the room. Not the race, don't assume based on race, clothes, or accent who can or can't afford. Read their energy. Are they hesitating? Do they love the product but pause at price? Use intuition, not ego. Because when you read right, you can close right. Step 4. Build loyalty, not just sales. That second price isn't always about today. It's about tomorrow. When you drop to your floor price with care, the person leaves feeling respected. They'll tell their friends, come back again, trust you when you introduce a new product. Feel emotionally invested in your hustle. That's long-term value, not just a once-off transaction. Step 5. Control the game. Don't be pressured. This strategy doesn't mean you're weak or desperate. You're in control. You know your numbers. These traders became essential providers, offering goods in small, affordable quantities, using credit, bargaining flexibility, and human relationships as their model. They sold maize meal, fabric, spices, cosmetics, and school shoes, not at inflated prices, but at prices people could pay. And with that came loyalty, volume, and sustainability. Marabastad. The bottom as a gold mine nowhere. Is this more visible than in Marabastad, a historical commercial district in Pretoria, where Indian businesses still dominate? It is not Santon, but it is a gold mine. These traders know that the domestic worker who earns 3,000 Rand a month still needs affordable furniture, that the street vendor buying 50 Rand worth of perfume to resell is a partner in survival, that a 10 Rand profit, multiplied across hundreds of transactions a day, adds up to sustainable wealth. Innovation. Without formality, while big companies needed think tanks to explore bottom-of-the-pyramid strategies, Indian traders in South Africa simply innovated out of necessity. They were among the first to break bulk and sell in small daily quantities, offer credit based on relationship rather than paperwork, source locally and regionally to cut transport costs, open early and close late to fit workers' schedules, customize products, iaji, wedding clothing, hair pieces, spices, to specific cultural needs. They operate without MBAs or marketing consultants, yet they demonstrate the same, if not better, agility and customer orientation that large corporations struggle to achieve. Building. From below, growing with integrity. The story of Indian enterprise in South Africa shows that you do not need to be at the top to build wealth. You can build from below, with ethics, community service, and customer intelligence. What's more powerful is that this model has created multi-generational stability. Children of banana vendors have become doctors, lawyers, developers, and global entrepreneurs, all because someone in the family saw value in the 5 Rand customer. Lessons for South Africa and the world. In a nation still grappling with inequality and youth unemployment, the Indian community offers a case study in inclusive capitalism, one that does not depend on handouts or massive infrastructure, but on respecting the economic power of the so-called bottom. It is time policymakers, entrepreneurs, and educators revisit C.K. Prahalad's wisdom through the living example of South Africa's Indian traders. There is a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, but it belongs to those who walk among the people, not those who fly over them. In the hands of the Indian entrepreneur, a single banana becomes not just a fruit, but a future, the warmth of trade. What Africans can learn from Indian customer service. Step into a small Indian-owned shop in any South African city. Marabastad, Durban's Grey Street, or a tiny general dealer in a township, and you'll often be greeted with a simple but powerful phrase, "Hello, my friend." That greeting, though sometimes dismissed as sales talk, carries a warmth and familiarity that instantly puts customers at ease. It's not just a tactic, it's a philosophy of service deeply embedded in Indian business culture. This spirit of personal connection, emotional hospitality, and attentive service sets Indian traders apart. They understand that people don't just buy products, they buy experiences, tone, and energy. In a world that can be cold and rushed, that small moment of warmth becomes a competitive advantage. Not manipulative, just smart and human critics. Sometimes say Indian traders are being manipulative, trying to get into your heart to get into your wallet. But that's a cynical view. The truth is, they understand that relationships drive loyalty. When they remember your name, ask about your family, or give you a little extra in your parcel, they're not faking it. They're cultivating a bond that goes beyond the transaction. You come back, not just because of price, but because you feel seen, heard, and valued. A stark contrast. This customer-centric attitude stands in contrast to what many experience in mainstream African-owned businesses. Unfortunately, in many state departments, township spazas, or even upmarket black-owned boutiques, poor customer service is still a common complaint. The body language is closed, the tone is flat, the energy is glum. Too often, it feels like the customer is a burden rather than a guest. The result? Customers walk out, go next door, or go online. And worse, opportunities for wealth creation are lost. This is not about race. It's about mindset. Let's be clear, this isn't about racial superiority. It's about business mindset and service culture. Africans can and must learn this. In fact, it's already happening. A new wave of young African entrepreneurs are taking notes, visiting Indian-run stores, observing how customers are welcomed, and rethinking how they themselves serve. Chapter 11. Street Capitalism. Street capitalism, the true revolution. There are stories in this country that don't make the headlines, but they make empires. They happen on pavements, in shipping containers, at taxi ranks, in the dust of forgotten villages. These are not tales of handouts, protests, or hashtags. These are stories of quiet rebellion, of men and women who chose the grind over grievance, the hustle over helplessness. They are the true builders of the economy, those who wake up without certainty, but show up anyway. They trade without permits, grow without grants, build without blueprints. They rise not because they are remembered by the state, but because they remember their own power. This is street capitalism. It is not taught at universities. It is not managed by investment boards. It is raw, improvised, powerful. And it is what holds this country together when speeches fail. We've been told the revolution will come through protests and radical policies, but the real revolution has already begun. It's in the barefoot girl selling herbal balm door to door. It's in the boy with tire grease on his hands, plugging punctures for taxi drivers. It's in the spaza owner who learned to code. This series is not just about business. It's about dignity. It's about reminding South Africa and the world that freedom doesn't only come from the vote. It comes from value creation. These are stories of people who said no to dependency and yes to self-determination. People who prove that wealth is not something you wait for. It's something you build with what you have, where you are. Welcome to Street Capitalism, the True Revolution. Title: The Soap Queen of Lusikiziki, How One Village Woman Turned Mud and Marula into a Movement. By Chris Kanyane, STEM Special Feature. Long before dawn breaks over the hills of Lusikiziki, a barefoot woman with a sack of soap and a fire in her belly begins her walk to the taxi rank. Her name is Thandeka Kwela, and she's rewriting the rules of rural business. One doorstep, one handshake, one marula soap at a time. She doesn't sell on Take-A-Lot. Her products aren't in pharmacies. She is the pharmacy, the supply chain, the brand, the messenger. My soap doesn't come with fancy boxes. It comes with a story, she says, tightening the doke on her head. People buy it because they trust me, not because a celebrity endorsed it. 3 years ago, she was just another unemployed girl, sitting under a tree, eating pap, and watching her future fade. Then her grandmother handed her a book on indigenous plants. That night, Thandeka stayed up reading about marula oil, wild rosemary, and umlonyana. By sunrise, she had made a decision. I will sell what I can grow, and I will grow what heals. She started with a bar of soap made from crushed marula kernels and goat fat, wrapped in newspaper. Her first customer was the lady who sells chicken feet outside the primary school. Word spread. Within weeks, she was selling 10 bars a day. I didn't wait for the government. I didn't attend a workshop. I just started. Today, she sells handmade soap, balm, and herbal remedies door to door. Across 5 villages. Her soap carries no barcode, but every batch carries her fingerprint. No middlemen, no retailers, no commissions. Just use direct trade. She walks, with a leather satchel armed with change, samples, and stories. And every Friday, she meets with 7 other women under a mango tree to train them in direct selling. We are not poor. We are just disconnected from opportunity. We sell what we touch. We grow what we use. That's real freedom. One of her best sales agents is a 70-year-old granny who used to beg at the taxi rank. Now she makes 180 rands a day selling balm. For joint pain? We turned grandmothers into saleswomen, not dependents. Ask Thandika if she believes in communism and she'll laugh. I believe in walking, talking, selling. I believe in waking up with nothing and going to sleep with R300 in my skirt. When people ask her what her dream is, she doesn't say, global exports. She says, I want every village to have its own millionaire. Tyre Kingdom, How Thabo Built a Township Empire from a Slow Puncture. By Chris Kanyane, Chur Sunday feature, The New Builders series. On the far edge of Soshanguve, where taxis roar like wild bulls and potholes eat car parts for breakfast, there's a man named Thabo Mokowena who owns the most trusted tire and wheel shop in the township. His sign says, Tyre Kingdom, you roll, we roll. But before he was king, he was just a skinny teenager with cracked hands, riding a bicycle to work for a man named Piet van Tonder in Montana. Piet was the kind of Afrikaner who wore khaki shirts and called you Omat, even if he barely knew your name. Thabo laughs, but he had one thing that many black kids never got from anyone: faith. Back in 2011, Thabo had no diploma, no money, and no dream. He only knew how to work. Piet noticed, and unlike the easy caricatures that fuel campus protests and populist rallies, Piet didn't exploit. He taught. He taught me how to spot a rim leak, how to check air pressure blindfolded, and how to plug a tire without replacing it. Slow puncture magic, he used to call it. For months, Thabo studied the art of rubber the way others study law. Then he asked Piet a question that changed his life. What if I opened a small patch and plug spot in Soshanguve? Most bosses would brush that off. Piet didn't. You've got these, Piet said, holding up his oil-stained hands. Start with those. No startup capital, no funding, no pitch deck. Just a toolbox Piet gave him as a farewell gift, and one borrowed jack. And what Thabo found in Soshanguve was gold. Not underground gold, but the gold of broken roads, potholes, and the daily war zone of glass bottles and sharp stones. This township is rough on tires. Rougher than prison, he jokes. But that's where I found my fortune. He set up outside a taxi rank with a plastic sheet for shade and a chalkboard with prices. He offered free pressure checks to build trust. Within a month, taxis queued up. Within a year, he had hired 2 boys from Mabopani. Today, Tyre Kingdom has 14 employees, a waiting area, and a mobile van that fixes flats on the go. We don't just fix tires, we keep Soshanguve moving. We are the pulse of the township. When politicians scream, "Kill the boar" on TV, Thabo changes the channel. That boar gave me a toolbox, not a bullet, he says. There are stories in this country that don't make the headlines, but they make empires. He says Piet still visits once a year, brings biltong, drinks sweet tea, sits in the back like a proud uncle. This tire shop is part Afrikaans, part township. It's South Africa, man. Real South Africa. Not the Twitter version. The Iron Man of Zone 4. How a Backyard Welder Forged His Way Out of Poverty by Chris Kanyane. Feature story. Street Capitalism, The True Revolution. Before he was called Bra Welcome the Builder, he was just another man with burnt fingers and borrowed boots, pushing a broken welding machine across a dusty football field in Soshanguve Zone 4. Back then, Welcome Malanga worked for a welding company in Centurion, owned by a Portuguese family that paid him weekly, trained him reluctantly, and let him go the moment a younger cousin showed up needing a job. They said it was budget cuts. But I know what it was. No hard feelings. That's capitalism, he says, lighting a cigarette with a scorched thumb. They gave me a trade. I took it. He came back home with nothing but a grinder, a broken mask, and one skill that would save his life. He knew how to bend metal into security, so he put up a hand-drawn board on his shack that said, "Burglar." Doors and welding, fast, strong, safe. His first client was a church sister who wanted a gate welded to her shack. He charged R250, bought himself lunch, and spent R180 on welding rods. He repeated this for months. Grind, spark, eat, repeat. People were getting robbed left and right. I told them, don't wait for the cops. Wait for Bra Welcome. I'll give your house iron fists. Soon, his yard was a small factory. Scrap metal in one corner. Finished burglar bars lined up like soldiers in another. He employed 2 boys, one to hold the poles, another to carry materials on a wheelbarrow. No loans, no invoices, just cash and sparks. You don't need a business plan if you've got repeat customers. Today, Welcome has built burglar bars for over 400 homes across Soshanguve, Hammanskraal, and Winterveld. He still works from his backyard, under a zinc roof that leaks when it rains. He's saving to buy a bakkie, but says the most important thing he's built isn't metal. It's respect. A man who can feed his children with his own hands doesn't bow for food. Ask him what he thinks about politics. They don't build. I build. End of story. Rubber and Fire: How Andrew Mabena Turned Old Tires into Township Gold, by Chris Kanyan. Feature story: Street Capitalism, the True Revolution. In a dusty corner of Kwamlanga, where cows still roam between RDPs and school kids kick soccer, balls made of plastic bags, Andrew Mabena runs a furniture and custom kitchen business made entirely out of what others throw away: tires, oil drums, pallets, and imagination. People think success needs capital. I think it just needs eyes. Eyes that can see furniture and junk, Andrew says, sanding down a chair made from a Goodyear tire. His yard is a maze of color and flame. Metal sheets being bent into stoves, tires being stitched into ottomans, and welding sparks flying from corner to corner. Customers pull up in backies. Some walk from the bus stop. Others call days in advance to reserve their VIP sets, his signature tire couches with beer crate tables. But this wasn't always his kingdom. Andrew used to work in Bronkhorst Sprite as a panel beater, fixing dents and painting bumpers. After retrenchment, he sat at home for 6 months, eating pap and growing a belly. One day, he saw a video on his cousin's phone, a Somali man making chairs from old tires. I thought, wait, we burn tires here. These things are everywhere. Free raw material, sitting in the street. He started by building a tire stool for his mom's small salon. It was wonky, but it worked. Next came a set of kitchen shelves welded from scrap metal and covered in plastic tablecloth offcuts. People laughed. Then they ordered. Today, Andrew builds full living room sets from painted tires and cushions, backyard kitchen units with gas stove slots and steel sinks, shoe racks, braai stands, school desks, anything the township needs made from scraps. He employs 3 young boys, all previously unemployed. His workshop is loud, busy, and always covered in sawdust and paint fumes. But he smiles through it all. Communism can't give you this. A meeting can't give you this. Only work can. Ask him if he dreams of big business. I don't need to be a millionaire. I just want to build something that lasts and make sure every shack in Kwamlanga has a chair, a shelf, and a stove from this yard. If the economy's broken, we'll fix it the way we fix tires. Patch it, pump it, and roll on. Final word. In a country where political slogans are louder than policy results, South Africa missed a miracle. A miracle not built on dreams and dogma, but on diesel engines, dry land, and decades of hard-earned expertise. A miracle that could have turned this country from a battlefield of bitterness into a breadbasket of abundance. That miracle was Boer, a white farmer knowledge. Yes, Boer knowledge, the white farmer, a phrase that, in today's political climate, seems almost radioactive. But truth doesn't care about your feelings. And the truth is this. Boers, the white farmers, know how to farm. They know how to turn dust into dinner. They know how to engineer, irrigate, plow, harvest, rotate crops, fix machinery, breed livestock, run supply chains, and export to global markets. And instead of tapping into that incredible wealth of knowledge, what did the African National Congress do? It turned the farmer into the enemy. Imagine a different choice. Imagine if, instead of shouting, "Kill the Boer," the ANC had said, "Partner with the Boer, the Afrikaner." Imagine if, instead of waving fists, they extended hands. We could have had a different South Africa, a practical, united, productive country. A nation where unemployed youth from townships were matched with seasoned farmers, trained in mechanical engineering, agri-tech, soil health, and food distribution. We could have turned every farm into a skills college. We could have turned every unemployed youth into a provider. We could have fed South Africa, not just with maize, meat, and milk, but with hope. Instead, we got slogans. We got policies written in anger, not analysis. We got the myth of expropriation without compensation, a fantasy built on revenge, not reform. And worst of all, we got an entire generation of young Black South Africans cut off from their inheritance, the inheritance of learning how to grow, fix, build, and sell. A story they don't want you to hear. They say white farmers only exploited, never empowered. I laugh, because I know another story. My grandfather lived it. He was a foreman on a Boer Afrikaner farm during apartheid. a man of early mornings, calloused hands, and quiet integrity. He was respected, not just as labor, but as a thinker. And one day, after years of loyalty and leadership, his Boer boss didn't just thank him, he gave him a tractor. Let that sink in. A tractor. Not a speech, not a t-shirt, not a promise, a tool. That tractor started a business. My grandfather farmed his own land. He became, by township standards, a wealthy man. Not rich in cash, but rich in freedom. He hired others, sold maize, built a name, sent his children to school, and he never once chanted a political slogan. Real transformation. Before the politics, this happened during apartheid. Yes, apartheid, the system that rightfully deserves condemnation for its cruelty and inhumanity. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to talk about. Even in those dark days, there were sparks of cooperation. Even then, black excellence emerged, not through policies, but through partnerships. This wasn't charity. It was Ubuntu in practice, long before it became a buzzword. Some Boers, for all their faults, believed in passing down tools, not just wielding power. And that kind of wisdom changes families for generations. What the ANC stole from us, let's be clear, the greatest sin was not against white farmers. The greatest sin was against young black men and women who were denied the chance to learn from the best. Instead of linking hungry youth with experienced farmers, the ANC told them to chant. Instead of investing in tractors, they invested in rallies. Instead of food programs, they funded flags and factions. And today, we are paying the price. Food prices are up. Youth unemployment is a crisis. Farms are under siege or shrinking, and the people who know how to feed the nation are leaving or working quietly, afraid of being visible. We could have had a great leap, but real China had its great leap forward, a tragic ideological disaster that killed millions. South Africa could have had its own version, but this one would have been real, not utopian, not destructive, not fantasy. Grounded in real, science of the land mechanics of farming, business of agriculture, spirit of Ubuntu instead, the ANC chose the warpath over the workbench. The revival. We still need, but it's not too late. We don't need a revolution. We need a revival. We need to say to the Boers, let's build together. We need to say to young black men, put down the slogan and pick up a spanner. We need to say to our nation, stop worshiping politics. Start respecting productivity. We need to create a new pact. Boer skill plus black energy. Tyres national. Prosperity. We have the land. We have the youth. We have the experience. What we don't have is leadership. A new vision. Ubuntu. Capitalism. Let us imagine something better. Let us write a new chapter of Ubuntu capitalism, where capital is not just money, but skill, experience, and integrity. Where Ubuntu is not just kindness, but shared growth and real work. Where the farmer is not the enemy, but the professor. Where young people are not cannon fodder for slogans, but apprentices in the school of soil, sun, and sweat. Let us remember my grandfather's tractor, not as a sentimental story, but as a blueprint for real empowerment. Let us remember the miracle we missed, and vow never to miss it again. In the end. South Africa doesn't need more marches. It needs more mechanics. It doesn't need more expropriation. It needs more expertise. It doesn't need enemies. It needs elders with tools. Because in the end, a man who can feed a village is more valuable than a man who can fill a stadium. And maybe, just maybe, the first step toward our healing is to stop threatening the very people who can help us build. The ANC is not God. Learn from Hong Kong and Dubai. There's a dangerous myth in South Africa that the ANC is the beginning and end of progress, that without the ANC the country would collapse, that they alone liberated the people and, therefore, must be worshipped for eternity. Let's be clear, the ANC is not God. They are not above questioning. They are not the sole authors of our destiny. They are a political party, not a sacred religion. And the truth is, some of the most successful places on earth are wholly apolitical in how they run and thrive. Look at Hong Kong. It rose to global economic power not because of political liberation slogans, but because of stability, smart trade, and relentless focus on progress. It became a magnet for talent and capital by focusing on creating a climate of innovation, not endless revolutions or party doctrine. Look at Dubai. There's no national democratic revolution in Dubai. No decades-long ideological struggle. Just clear goals, disciplined execution, and the ability to attract minds and money from around the world. Dubai doesn't waste time on outdated political fights. It builds, it attracts, it thrives. Meanwhile, in South Africa, the ANC clings to ideological ghosts, obsessed with controlling the narrative, the state, and the economy, while the youth sit unemployed, businesses drown in red tape, and the basic services crumble. You don't need to be loyal to a party. You need to be loyal to progress. South Africa doesn't need more slogans. It needs more real jobs, working infrastructure, skilled entrepreneurs, and peace. Let the past be honored, but don't let it become a leash. It's time to stop kneeling at the altar of a political party. It's time to rise as free-thinking, opportunity-building, people-first South Africans.